Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my reality. My name is Justin, and on this channel, we talk about conscious creation, we talk about manifestation, self concept, spirituality, and so much more. And I just want to say, welcome back because it's been a fucking minute since I posted anything. I've been really busy with getting my degree, some personal things, and yeah, I just want to say sorry for the long duration between videos. It's been a few weeks since I last uploaded and then about a month since I made a video like this. But I want to talk about something that's been on my mind since then. And that's when we undervalue ourselves, our worth, and our value at the expense of other people. And I want to tie this directly into specific person manifestations because I feel like that's where we do this the most. Because I've said it before on my channel, and a specific person manifestation is such a beautiful opportunity to really know ourselves, to really practice our God state, to practice these concepts of law of assumption and conscious creation, right? Because people are, I mean, everything's a reflection on our reality, right? But people are sometimes a direct reflection to what we're assuming, to what we're believing, to our assumptions and beliefs about love. And it's such a beautiful opportunity that we get to go out in the world, between 8 or 9 billion people, however how many people are on the planet right now, but we get to go out into the world and choose our own reflection. We get to choose a person and be like, yes, I love you. I want you to reflect me, and I reflect you, and this is it's such a beautiful opportunity of co-creation. And that's why when I was manifesting my specific person, that was like number one on my list, right? Because I wanted someone I could co-create with. I wanted someone who I knew was going to reflect the things in my self-concept that I needed to change. They were going to reflect, you know all the assumptions I had about life, about how the way the world worked, about love, about all these different areas, right? And use that reflection as information in order to better my life, to better the other person's life, to really, grow this relationship into something that's beautiful, long lasting. And that's what I want to talk about today is really getting to that point where we can see the reflection and not get triggered. Because when we start to practice these concepts, right? And especially when we're new to understanding information like this, sometimes it's triggering, right? Like we see different reflections of people, or we see things manifested into 3D that's right in front of our face. And sometimes it's really fucking triggering, right? Because it's like, okay, I didn't consciously think this, so why is this even happening in my reality? And I can definitely relate to that because that's something that I went through personally for a long time, not really understanding the correlation between what I was thinking and what I was desiring. But before we get into it, for anyone who doesn't know me, hey again, my name is Justin. Like I said, I teach spiritual concepts. I'm really into Neville Goddard's teachings mostly, but I also reference other spiritual teachers like Abraham Hicks, Joe Dispenza, Emil Coué. So if that's something you're interested, I would love to have you part of the channel. So if you resonate with today's content, please like and subscribe to the channel. There are many ways to work with me, including one-on-one coaching, monthly email coaching, and all those offerings are in the Dropbox below. Of course, they are not required because you can manifest completely 100% on your own. But if you are looking for additional guidance, additional support, I would love to work with you. So if that's something you're interested in, please send me an email and check out my stand store because that's where all that is located. In case you guys are wondering, if you see me look down at any time in this video, it's definitely because I am referencing my iPad. I have all my notes on there. I like to go on a tangent sometimes, so yeah, that's just to keep me on track for my own, personal reasons. But yeah, let's get into the video. So, why do we undervalue ourselves, right? Why do we put up with shitty versions of people, shitty behavior from our specific person, or maybe even it's a family member, right? Like that's something that I've seen other people, within my own friend group, within my own family structure really struggle with is letting people or allowing people to continuously walk all over you, so to speak, right? To let people overstep their boundaries that you've set with them. Um, and why do we do this, right? From a manifestational point, why do we continue to allow these experiences into our life? How did it even kind of get to this place at all, right? And as someone who really, takes pride in helping people, right? And takes pride in helping people transform their mindset, transform their life, really materialize the things that they are wanting into their life so that they may know them themselves as the operant power, as the creator of their own reality, right? As someone who does that, a reoccurring theme that I see in a lot of the clients that I work with is low self concept. And self concept is something that you might hear, you might have heard before. You know, we kind of throw it around in this community, right? It's your conception of yourself. It's how you see yourself. It's how you see yourself in relation to pretty much every area of your life, but it also includes your perception about manifestation, your perception about how reality works in general, right? And so we hear this term thrown around a lot. But in my personal opinion, it's often the most critical component to manifesting and keeping your desires into your 3D physical experience. Is it required to manifest? You have to have a perfect self concept when it comes to love in order to manifest your SP, or when it comes to money in order to attract the abundance into your life? No, of course not, because, in my own personal experience, I've manifested a lot. Even before I really started working on my self concept and really integrating that into my daily manifestational practice. Like, I came from Abraham Hicks and The Secret, and she really doesn't talk, at least Abraham Hicks, like, she really doesn't talk about self concept in the way that Neville talks about it, in the way that you hear a lot of these modern YouTubers talk about it, right? But what I've come to realize over time is working on my self concept only strengthened my ability to create. It only strengthened how quickly, how effortless my manifestations come into my reality, right? And so that's why I kind of take a dual approach when it comes to coaching my own clients. Like, yes, let's focus on the specific manifestations, on the specific person and the money and the health, right? But if we really understand that the foundation is how we see ourselves, the root cause is our identity, it's our dominant assumptions, our dominant beliefs. And if we really start to work on our self concept in the areas that might need improvement, it's only going to help us, And I feel like a lot of us kind of don't want to hear that, right? Like, this is such a. I feel like society has gotten to a point, right, where instant gratification is just the thing, right? It's just we want to get the quickest result in the most efficient way, the way that requires the less amount of work, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you really start to value yourself, when you really start to value this process of transforming your mind, transforming your relationship with God, as God being yourself, right? You're only gonna want to do things that elevate your state of consciousness. And so when we start to work on our self concept, then we can start to see, okay, like, this is why I've actually been putting up with circumstances and people and versions of people that I really, like, at the end of the day, I don't want. I say I am wanting this thing, right? But I'm continuously settling. I'm continuously putting up with disrespect and people breadcrumbing me and gaslighting me and manipulating me, right? And so that's what I really want to talk about a bit deeper, is not only why we do that, but how we can kind of shift out of that and to start claiming a new conception of ourselves so that we can really get the things we want and we can live a more fulfilling life, right? Because it's not just about getting the things, it's about living a more fulfilling life. It's about being happier in the process. And again, it's about knowing yourself as God. So, the reason why a lot of people, most people really have low self concept is for a few reasons. It's, because of societal programming, it's due to all the past traumas that have might been passed down in your family from generation to generation. It's a lot of things, right? From the ages to 1 to about 7 to 8 years old, we're like a fucking sponge. Like, our critical thinking skills really haven't developed. And so our subconscious mind is wide open. We accept literally anything as true in our reality, and we really don't question it, right? Like, think of Santa, right? Like, that's the most prominent example I can think about is Santa Claus. Like, our parents just say, "Oh, Santa's coming on December 25th," and you really kind of just don't think about it, right? Until you get a little bit older and you start questioning, like, okay, well, why have I never seen Santa? Or why did Santa look exactly like dad, right? Like, you just start putting the pieces together and you realize, okay, like, there's more to this story than what it seems. And you start really questioning, right? You start adopting these beliefs by society, by our parents, that this is just how the world is. And so, between the ages of 1 to 8, your self concept is literally being shaped and formed and created, right? From those years. And it's often those years and the things you pick up subconsciously and consciously that forms your perception of reality. It forms the perception of what is available to you in that moment based off your own experiences and based off what people have told you, year after year, family member after family member. Money is scarce, love is hard to get, right? Like, those things imprint our subconscious mind. And from our subconscious mind, we have no choice really but to operate from that state of mind, right? Because our actions come from our self concept. Our actions come from really our subconscious mind. The programming really is running the script. And so, while we can say we want something else, if we have a dominant story in us that says love is hard, love is unattainable, I might get love, I might manifest love, but, pretty soon it's going to fucking end. Pretty soon the shoe's going to fucking drop, right? If we have that story dominant in our mind, whether we're thinking about it consciously or not, right? Eventually, that's what has to play out into our reality in one way or another. And that's really where our actions come from. And that's something I really like to reiterate on my channel a lot is action is determining your state of consciousness, right? It's determining your state of mind. And you are only going to act in a way and show up in 3D in a way that is in alignment with your subconscious and is in alignment with your self concept. So it's people with low self concept and it's the people with the dominant belief that love is unattainable, love is hard, they're not chosen, or that wealth is unattainable to them, are all rich people are evil, right? Like, money doesn't grow on trees, money is hard to get, or if you get money, you have to work really, really hard for it. It's those beliefs that are dominant within us, right? It's not the beliefs that we think every now and then, but it's the beliefs that are dominant within us that are always kind of in the background running the script, running the show 24/7. It's those beliefs that we are operating from. And when we start to learn that it's about reprogramming your self concept, it's about shifting your perspective, really developing the ability to shift your focus, shift your attention, and shift your awareness to the preferred reality. Even if you might not see evidence of that shift in your reality instantly, it's really developing that skill, right? It's strengthening that muscle. I always say that manifestation really is a skill set. It really is something that can be developed. I mean, when we come into this information, especially having religious traumas, right? Especially having the doctrine that God is outside of us, that we are really at the mercy of a creator that's in the sky, whatever. When you start to really come into these teachings, like, it is a process in of itself, right? Like, we kind of have to test the law. We kind of have to start off small, manifesting the coffee, manifesting the pink cars, manifesting these what we would call smaller things, right? In order to build our faith. Because if you're coming from generation to generation where, you've always struggled to make ends meet, you've always struggled to really pay your rent or to keep the lights on, of course, like, you're gonna, for the most part, I'm not saying it's impossible, but for 99.9% of humans out there, like, they're going to struggle with manifesting $1 million because in their mind, that is just not what is available to them because that's never been available to them because that's been their past experience. But we have to remember in this whole manifestation game, the whole point is about shifting your awareness. It's about shifting your identity and really claiming something different for yourself, even though reality might not reflect that. Because if you really understand this information, you are starting to shift out of NPC mode. I mean, that's the only way I can really describe it simply, right? But NPC mode, meaning that you operate from 3D, right? You're operating, your state of mood, your thoughts are dependent on 3D. So, the way most humans operate, the way most humans think and act on a day to day basis is they see something in 3D. That in turn creates their assumptions, their beliefs. That creates the narrative, right, of what they are allowed to receive. But we have to understand that 3D is just a reflection. So if we keep just operating from what we can see, what we can perceive with our five senses, we are only, observing and witnessing 3D, which is old news, it's your old reality, it's your old thoughts playing out. And we don't choose to shift our perspective. We don't choose to re identify with a new story that is more favorable for us, or identify with really having our desire, or in the very least, knowing that our desires are inevitable for us, then we are literally just going to be creating the same thing over and over in different forms through different experiences. But it's going to be like the same lesson, right? It's going to be the same theme that just plays over and over and over. So it's really about reprogramming ourselves, reprogramming our mindset, allowing ourselves to think something different, and giving ourselves permission to do that. Because, for the longest time, like with me, like I wanted to change my money story so bad because I could always manifest love, right? That wasn't really that hard for me, but it was always the story that money was hard to come by, or I'd have to put in so many hours at work. Really, the biggest thing for me was getting over the belief that my income, right, could only come from a 9 to 5. Because really, that's all I'd experienced up until that point in my life, was having my income come through a paycheck, seeing others, of course, like have their own businesses and stuff, but really, like, really grinding, really hustling all the damn time. And therefore, there was a subconscious belief within me that was formed that said, you're going to have to work really long hours. You're going to have to do something that's either very, very mentally draining or very, very physically demanding, right? In order to make the type of money that you're wanting to make. So it's really about peeling back the layers of that onion and starting to see yourself, starting to see reality in a different way, and just practicing that over and over. Um, because it's true, like the manifestation in a nutshell really is about what you think about. It's really about what you're placing your awareness on and what you're claiming for yourself as available or unavailable, right? So it's about using repetition to do this and really practicing, really strengthening this muscle, really strengthening our attention so that we can form new beliefs and new assumptions, and therefore it be reflected into reality. Now, there's this whole debate kind of going on right now in this community where it's like, okay, well, I've heard some people, this is what people have said to me, but they're like, okay, I've heard some people say that we shouldn't be affirming, or we shouldn't be visualizing to get something. We should be, doing it to shift our identity. And I will say that I think it's more beneficial to do this work, to do the internal practices, right, in order to shift your identity, because that is going to pave the way to not only receive your manifestation, but for you to level up, for you to become a better person, a better version of yourself in the process. And there's literally no harm in doing that. Like, you're only going to gain, and you're only going to become a better manifester, a quicker manifester in that process. So no, it's not required to work on your self concept, right? But like I said, with my clients, I like to take a dual approach. I like to say, okay, well, let's work on your specific desires, of course, but let's really hone in on your self concept. Let's really use self concept as your anchor. Because here's what I tell people when it comes to specific person manifestations. You know, you can manifest a specific person, but if anything or anyone or any person is the cause of your happiness, right? if that person is on the pedestal, and if that person, like it's all great and it's all fun and games when that person is reflecting something positive, and they're reflecting back your positive assumptions and all the work you've been doing, right? Like that's such an amazing thing and feeling. But it's important to really not rely on that person or that thing or that manifestation or really anything in 3D to tell you who you are, to tell you what you get to have. So if you're overly concerned with getting that person in order to feel loved, in order to feel chosen, in order to feel like you are deserving of love and commitment and a sexy fucking relationship, right? Like, if you need that person to always reflect that back to you, then you are at the mercy of that person, right? It's just like praying to a God outside of you and pleading and begging with God. It's literally you're doing that same thing, but you're doing that with your SP. And until the SP isn't showing you that, then it's like all the work you've done kind of goes out the window. But when you work on strengthening your self concept, when you work on identifying as a new version of yourself with a new set of beliefs, actions, feelings and assumptions, right? You start to realize though that that does you so much more justice, right? Like that really does become your savior in a way. It becomes your resting place, your fallback place, because no matter what happens in 3D, this is who I am. Not because anything outside of me says that this is who I am, but because I know that I am, right? That just by claiming it, just by being it, that's enough. And over time you do start to believe this, but we often struggle, we often give up right in the beginning because we're not believing at first, or we're seeing opposite results in our 3D. And I get it, like that's really disheartening sometimes. It's really discouraging, but if we keep persisting, if we keep doing the internal practices, visualizing in the wish fulfilled, right, affirming as if we already have something, revising our past, right? If we keep doing this internal work, then eventually you will start to catch on. Eventually you will start to actually believe the things you're saying for yourself, but it's going to require the repetition for you to get there. Especially if it's a story, especially if it's an area of your life that you've struggled with for a very, very long time, with limiting beliefs, with people telling you you can't do this or you can't achieve this, right? But you just have to start somewhere. You really just have to get your hands dirty and really start doing these processes, and not to say you have to really do all these techniques or whatever, but start deciding something different for yourself despite what reality is telling you. That's the biggest, I guess, the biggest advice I could give to someone is the quicker you unhook yourself from 3D, the better off you will be, the quicker you will manifest, the easier you will manifest, right? But until you kind of take off the shackles of 3D and stop becoming so hyper dependent on your outer reality, then you will become a slave to the dead world, as Neville puts it. So, like I said, manifesting without really working on your self concept is completely fucking possible. But when you start to address the holes in your self concept, that's when life gets so fucking better. That's when manifesting becomes so fucking effortless, right? And that's my own personal experience. When I started to rewire my thoughts, my beliefs when it come to receiving love, and I kind of just like drop the whole idea of manifesting a specific person and just lived my life, stopped obsessing over them, stopped obsessing over the text message or the phone call or how many matches I got on Tinder that day, and like needing a person to make me feel whole and complete, and just live my life and focus on things I love to focus on, and putting my awareness on other things, other areas of my life, right? That's when I manifested my dream relationship, which I'm currently in. And this relationship, I've said it before, but this relationship is so fucking amazing. It's so fucking great. Like every day just keeps getting better and better, but like I wasn't always at that place. And like I said, I've never had a huge dominant story, negative dominant story when it come to love in comparison to money. But my self concept could have been worked on. Yeah, I've had my own fair share of being in toxic relationships in my past with my past partners, and them overstepping my boundaries and disrespecting me, and not to say that I didn't learn from those experiences, but yeah, it was pretty fucking obvious. Like, I had some holes in my self concept. I had some things in my self concept that I needed to work on and I needed to address before I was willing to kind of step out of my box and receive a love that I've always wanted. Because I kept saying, oh, I want this type of love. I want someone to romance me. I want to do all these things, right? And I would manifest bits and pieces of that in my past. But I realized and I become aware that at first, especially, like, I wasn't able to completely accept the love that I was given by others or even by my current specific person, right? Like, he would show up in all these amazing ways, but my self concept dominantly within me is love does not last. Just wait for the shoe to drop, Justin, because you know it's gonna happen, and then you're gonna be, alone and crying and heartbroken, and then have to start the process over of getting to know someone again and being vulnerable and yeah, so I became aware that okay, like even though I've manifested this beautiful, fulfilling, sexy, amazing relationship in my life that I've always wanted, like I still have to do the work. I still have to really instill these beliefs in myself and change the way I perceive the world. Otherwise, I'm just gonna default back into the self concept that says that I'm not chosen or people don't choose me or love never lasts, right? Like I had to keep working on my internal story, strengthening those beliefs, strengthening those assumptions so I was able to keep my manifestation, right? And that's why I say working on self-concept is such a big, it's such a big advantage to anyone who does it because you can manifest without working on your self-concept, but it really solidifies your reality. It really helps you bring in your manifestation, but also sustain in your manifestation in a way that's going to provide you long lasting results. When we just kind of bypass the self concept work, understanding our inherent worth and value, understanding really who we are as the creator of our realities, then the results are possible, but they're kind of just, short lived in a way. And that's when, like I said, when I work with my clients, I take a double sided approach. We work on your specific manifestation, but we also working on strengthening your self concept. So you're really not at the mercy of your specific person. Really, nothing in 3D can sway you at that point because you are so rock solid in yourself, in your beliefs, in your assumptions, what you get to have, and what's available to you that all it's going to do is transform your life in the best way possible. So, really, the whole goal of self concept work, manifestation in general, right, is to kind of get yourself on board. It's to get yourself out of your own way, right? And what I mean by that is to get your thoughts, get your feelings, and get your actions all in alignment. By alignment, I mean just making sure that you're showing up every day as the version of yourself in the wish fulfilled, right? The version of yourself that's in the relationship of your dreams, that's in the relationship where you feel valued, where you feel respected, where you feel cherished, right? And again, your actions come from your state of consciousness. So if you're saying one thing, really look at how you're showing up in the world. If you're saying one thing, but you're doing the complete opposite, you're settling for the breadcrumbs, you're settling for the disrespect, for the late night booty calls, which is fine. But if you're wanting a lasting, committed relationship where you are intermingling you and your SP's families and growing a family and doing all these amazing things together that you do in a committed relationship, then why are you showing up in reality settling, right? And chasing and trying to undermine your own worth and your own value by putting up with versions of people who clearly aren't giving you what you want. So it's really about understanding that our thoughts come first and then our thoughts begin to condition our feelings. So once we start thinking in a different way, when we start thinking in our favor in the wish fulfilled, right? Then even though we don't start to believe it at first, we start to get to a point where our feelings start to become on board, right? They start to be like, okay, like this is what we're doing now. And you actually start to, at least in my experience, you start to really feel the internal shift in your feelings. And your feelings are really just an indicator of your thoughts. It's an indication of your state of awareness and really how your higher self, right? Like broader perspective, source, God, whatever you want to call it. When you start to feel good, source is like, yes, like give me more of that because how you're seeing that perspective, right? That's how source sees that. And so when your thoughts and when your feelings really start to align, right? Then your actions start to follow through. Then you start to show up in ways in your reality where you stop settling, you stop putting up with the breadcrumbs and the disrespect, right? And once you get all three of those things on board, that's where I believe you really start to shift your identity. And not to say you can't experience shifts before you do all that, but it's pretty fucking solid in your reality at that point, right? And that's what I kind of try to teach all my clients is let's focus on our self concept, let's focus on our desires, of course, but like let's do that in a way that's going to really allow you to keep your manifestations and allow you to experience this life to the fullest of your ability. But like I said, this whole manifestation game is a skill set. When we, take care of ourselves and take care of our mindset and really treat this like a journey rather than a destination, then, like that's when life just fucking 3X's, right? Like it becomes so much more fucking better, because not only do you get your manifestations, but you find this solidarity within yourself, right? And nothing can fucking break that. When you truly know yourself as the upper power, as God, as I am, nothing can fucking break that. Nothing can compete with that. And no matter what happens in life, no matter what you experience, you're going to be good. And that's really the whole point of my channel. That's the whole point of this content. And that's what I really want to drive home as much as I can with you guys, because when I feel like when you start to care about more how you feel, how you see yourself, rather than just getting the manifestation, which is just a byproduct of all this internal work, then like you're fucking golden. You're good. And you're gonna go so fucking far, so much farther than just getting the thing and then being at the exact same place when something happens in 3D or you don't have it or whatever, right? Self concept work is life changing. It is game changing if you take the time to develop it, if you take the time to really strengthen it like a muscle. Again, all the ways to work with me are in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.